Chapter 8. Meet the Real I. Suppose your best friend has sent you a birthday present. From the moment you hold it, you cannot stop admiring it. The wrapping paper has an elegant finish and design. There is a pretty looking silk ribbon bow that perfectly matches the paper, curled and tied across the package. A long note of good wishes is handwritten and stuck just beneath the ribbon. You smile in anticipation of what the gift could be as you carefully unwrap it. You then find an exotic velvet box with traditional motifs on it. You hold it in your hand and are absolutely enamored by its beauty. The wow factor makes you believe that the velvet box is your gift. You find the best spot for it on your desk. Place it gently and keep gazing at it. An hour later, your friend calls up to ask if you liked the gift. You thank her profusely for the box. She is somewhat irked when you keep praising the box and the packing. She finally says, "All that is fine, but tell me about the actual gift. Did you like it?" You have no idea what she is asking. Surprised at your ignorance, she asks you to open that box and look within. Spotting a lining of the lid on the box, you carefully lift it up. The box gets opened and you find the actual gift, a sparkling diamond perfectly set in a pendant. How elated would you feel? Somehow, this is the way we have lived our lives. We are so thrilled with all the glamour and beauty around us that we fail to discover the diamond within, the actual I. Let us take a moment to unpack our life's most valuable gift. Visualize this scene on the screen of your mind. Look at your designation, position, status, and achievements. They are labels and the ribbons in your life. Extremely valuable and attractive. Just for a minute, remove them and keep them aside. Next, gently keep aside all that you have bought to use in your life to make your body comfortable and to experience joy through your sense organs. They represent the wrapping paper. Now you have reached the velvet box that symbolizes your healthy, attractive, and extremely useful body. Open that velvet box and you will find a glittering and flawless piece of diamond. This precious diamond within signifies the real you, the soul residing within the body. But why is the awareness of I as a soul so important? Imagine spending a lifetime believing that the gifts of life are the box and the packaging, while remaining oblivious to the diamond inside. Then imagine looking for diamond outside, believing it is too expensive for you to afford. Soul consciousness makes the actual diamond the innate gifts of purity, love, peace, happiness, power, wisdom, and bliss. An eternal reality for every human being. And yet, we imagine these emotions are not always accessible. You enter a shopping mall and start looking around. Just a few meters away, you find a toddler walking around playfully with her mother. You see her smiling and waving randomly at strangers. As you continue to witness her activities, she accidentally gazes at you and flashes a smile. How does that make you feel? Her vibrations of happiness, purity, innocence, unconditional love, and acceptance instantly attract you. You reciprocate by waving back and smiling. During those moments, you forget any stress or problems you have and feel relaxed. This is because you have met a pure, egoless soul. In other words, that child has not yet acquired the wrapping paper, the ribbons and labels, and hence has not created the layers of ego that conceal the diamond within. The diamond is exposed in the sense that the soul's purity radiates to you and attracts you. The same happens in the company of saints as well, because with years of meditation and through other spiritual endeavors, they are closer to their original soul conscious state. Although you feel you are experiencing the purity and peace of that child or saint, you actually experience your own purity, which is triggered by their soul consciousness. Their vibrations make you comfortable because they connect you to your own innate beautiful qualities. In other words, the company of a child or a saint brings you the closest to being your pure and peaceful self. On the other hand, the vibrations of ego or body consciousness in one person triggers ego in another. If you meet someone who is body conscious, you also start feeling superior, inferior, angry, scared, or insecure. Ego consciousness, the discriminator. Consciousness is like a lens we wear mentally, and that lens dictates how we see the world. Consciousness refers to what we believe about ourselves, others, and the world itself. This is why we do not see anything objectively. We see everything through our beliefs about them. We build their image in our mind and then try to impose that image on them. Forgetting our true identity as souls, we have created ego, which means we have worn the lens of ego consciousness. The lens of ego does not let us identify ourselves as equal souls. It has made us constantly feel superior, inferior, better, or worse in reference to each other. For instance, if we believe we are a role, we connect to another person as a role. That person may have the virtues of kindness and compassion, but since we are looking through the lens of role consciousness, we do not see them as a kind and compassionate soul. Our ego consciousness, bracket में role consciousness in this case, will make us see them as a role, and hence we will feel either inferior or superior to them. This blocks our energy of respect, acceptance, and love. Emotions associated with ego, such as aggression, intolerance, hatred, and retaliation, get triggered more often. So, it is important to wear the right consciousness lens, one that is true and fair for everyone. Today, if we look at our personal life, interpersonal relationships, nation, or the world, the root cause of every issue or problem is ego consciousness. Notice our thoughts and feelings as we make these statements and observe how our perspective narrows down on so many levels. I am an Indian meeting an American. Nationality consciousness. I am a Hindu talking to a Christian. Religion consciousness. I am the only woman working with a team of 5 men. Gender consciousness. I am older to her, so she must obey me. Age consciousness. I am a father advising my son. Relationship consciousness. I am a security guard greeting my boss. Position consciousness. I am a wealthy individual who engages in charity. Wealth consciousness. I am a landlord renting my apartment to tenants. Possession consciousness. I am a pure soul working with another pure soul. Soul consciousness. All of them, except for the last row, represent different forms of ego consciousness. Ego consciousness is separating us from others through different labels, and it is driving us to achieve selfish motives. It is not letting us unite and live in harmony. Reread the last row of the table. Stating, I am a pure soul, might sound unusual at first, as it is not a part of your day to day vocabulary and is not embedded into your consciousness. Maybe you are not sure how this works practically. Do not worry about that. Simply feel the thought for now. You may close your eyes. Think of the significant people in your life and then say this line for you and for them. I am a pure soul living or working with this pure soul. This line reflects soul consciousness. Soul consciousness, the leveler. Each of us is a soul. Visualize in the center of the forehead the energy, the flawless diamond. Flawless diamond. Say this to yourself slowly. I am a soul, the consciousness, the energy, the power. I am a soul, a tiny point of divine light in the center of the forehead. I am a soul, master of this body. I am a soul, I create intentions, thoughts, and feelings. I am a soul, I decide my words and behaviors. I am a soul, I create my relationships. I am a soul, I create my destiny. The soul cannot be seen or touched, nor can its existence be proven scientifically. The seat of the soul is in the center of the brain, between the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. However, it can be visualized as a point of light at the center of the forehead. The soul is also called the third eye of wisdom. In Indian culture, a tilak is applied on the forehead, between the eyebrows. That is a reminder of who we are. Besides, in certain places of worship, we not only leave our footwear outside the premises, but we also leave leather belts or handbags outside. Leather symbolizes the body, so this practice reminds us to keep our body consciousness away. Set ourselves in a soul conscious state and then connect to God, the Supreme Soul. When we are searching for peace, love, and happiness, what we are really looking for is a way to live meaningfully with all of creation, with unity and harmony. This is where soul consciousness comes into play. It operates on the principle of truth, equality, and unity. It lets us radiate respect to every soul for who they are and regard them for their age, relationship, and position. Soul consciousness recognizes that the other soul has been on a long journey of birth and rebirth, has faced a broad spectrum of situations, and hence has created a vast variety of sanskars in response to them. This understanding creates acceptance, compassion, empathy, and kindness. Suppose we say she is 5 years old. Whose age is that? The bodily costume is 5 years old. Before that, the soul probably lived in a costume that was 90 years old. And even prior to that, in yet another bodily costume, but we scold or even raise a hand at the girl only because of perceiving her as a young child. When her bodily costume becomes 20 years old, we say she has grown older, so we do not raise our hand. And when the costume becomes 40 years old, we hesitate even to scold her. But if we remember that she is an eternal wise soul, we will respect the soul even in a 5-year-old body. The number we refer to when we say my age is not truly our age. It is the age of the bodily costume we are currently wearing. We are ageless, eternal souls. When we come across a child who is wise beyond the bodily age, we say old soul in a new body, to imply that the child is bringing out the wisdom gained in an earlier lifetime. The truth is that each of us is an old soul in a new body. Souls playing roles. We sometimes complain, I am her father, but she does not respect me, or my housemaid talked back to me today. When we are in the consciousness of a relationship, we have an image of how the other person should behave. For example, a son should be obedient, or an employee should follow instructions sincerely. And if their behavior does not match this image, our ego gets hurt. It is only when our ego is bruised, which means when someone says or does something that is not as per our expectation of the image we have of them and of ourselves, that we get hurt and react. Society has laid down guidelines for how people are supposed to behave or function depending on their roles, but we routinely find people not complying. At times, we ourselves behave in ways that are unbecoming of us. The knowledge of soul consciousness helps to understand why we deviate. People are not their roles, but they are souls playing the roles. Hence, they are bound to behave as per the sanskars of the soul and not always as per the expectations of their soul, of their role. The film industry is a good example of role play. If the same role, script, storyline, and movie is offered to different actors, each one will play the role differently. The performance depends on the personality of the actor. The personality of an actor reflects in his role. Similarly, the sanskars and personality of the soul reflect in our various roles and relationships. When someone in our society does not follow its norms, we must certainly advise, teach, motivate, empower, discipline, or request them to inculcate values and sanskars. But at the same time, we should not feel upset or hurt if they do not comply, because we know they are a soul on a journey. A soul on the journey of several lifetimes creates a variety of sanskars. We shall understand this in depth in the next chapter. For now, let us know that once the soul creates a sanskar, it lives in an automated mode. The sanskars come in action as the behavioral characteristics associated with the role. We need to learn to change our uncomfortable sanskars so that, regardless of the role we play, a senior or a junior, the eldest or the youngest, a male or a female, our sanskars of humility, compassion, acceptance, and forgiveness prevail every time. Even when our role requires instructing or disciplining someone, we should be able to do it using our sanskars of love and kindness. A versatile movie actor plays any role, that of a pauper or a king, a conman or a cop, equally convincingly and with utmost ease. Whatever may be the role, his personality and style reflect in every scene. Similarly, we need to have awareness in every situation. Remind yourself, I, the soul, am playing the role of a parent, spouse, and professional. Regardless of the role, my, the actor's personality of respect, empathy, and wisdom should become evident in every scene. This soul consciousness will make happiness, humility, and compassion our natural sanskars and enable us to radiate elevated vibrations and behaviors in every role and every circumstance of life. Soul consciousness is not just another catchphrase. It is not just a theory, a belief, or a fact, and it is not enough to simply believe in it. What is important is to live, experience, and practice soul consciousness as we go about our day to day lives. To begin with, you may practice two mantras. First, I am a pure soul. Second, everyone I connect with is a pure soul who has been on a long journey and may have acquired sanskars that are different from mine. The three barriers to success and well being. Who in your life is very demanding? to the point that you are fed up of fulfilling their wants? Is it your boss, your spouse, your children, or life itself? If you think it is any of them, you might want to think again. Nothing and no one is more demanding than our own ego. Ego keeps seeking more and more to keep itself satisfied and pleased. It keeps raising the bar and increasing our expectations of ourselves and others. In fact, other people are also demanding things out of their ego. Expectations, attachments, dependencies, possessiveness, and dominance can leave us exhausted. Trying to satisfy ego is a futile struggle. To say the least, today many of us have everything that we want externally, physical necessities, comforts, maybe even luxuries. But the I, which wants to experience happiness, peace, and love, is left wanting. This is happening because we are looking for these emotions through consciousness of the body, roles, or positions. Let us examine our life when we see ourselves through each of these different consciousnesses: body consciousness, relationship consciousness, and role or position consciousness. Barrier 1: Body consciousness. We as souls want to experience happiness because the nature of the soul is to be happy. When we think we are a body, we try to experience happiness through the body. Therefore, we often make statements like these in pursuit of happiness. Let me listen to good music. Let me buy this dress. Let me eat my favorite food. Let me go on a vacation. Make no mistake, each of them is important and add variety to our life experiences. The only mistake is that we add another sentence: let me do this to feel happy. We want to eat tasty food through the mouth, watch a good movie through the eyes, listen to something exciting through the ears. Basically, when we think we are a body, we try to give happiness to the body through our five sense organs: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. We all know the feeling. Now contrast this to buying the things you can afford, the food you can eat, the holidays you can take. Do all of these happily rather than for happiness. It is the nature of the soul to be perfect, but we start looking for beauty and perfection in the body. Physical appearance thus starts occupying a lot of our mental space because we look at beauty standards as defined by society and seek to match it. We will therefore want perfect height, ideal weight, expressive eyes, smooth skin, long hair. The list can get both long and unreasonable. When we keep comparing our physical appearance with someone else's and measure our self worth on that basis, it could lead us to create jealousy or hurt. Some of us try to conceal physical imperfections through makeup, cosmetics, or even surgeries. The body may not be perfect, but we believe we are imperfect. This causes the I to feel inferior or rejected, thus depleting soul power. Happiness has nothing to do with physical appearance. Happiness is all about inner beauty, our intentions, state of mind, character, personality, sanskars, and actions. I can be beautiful and perfect even if the body does not match up to the standards of perfection. The innate quality of the soul is happiness, but we are trying to experience happiness through money, through the pursuit and purchase of objects. We want to have branded outfits, the best phone, the costliest bike, or the latest gadget to feel happier. This is a consequence of our flawed understanding of happiness. It is not a product that can be bought off a supermarket shelf. Think of a time when you bought an outfit you felt was fashionable, comfortable, and suited you well. You wore it to a family event, expecting a compliment or two, but someone remarked that you look old in that outfit. Did you feel bad? Did you start doubting your choice? Did you not like them for saying it? Reflect on this. You are the same person who was happy to wear the outfit of your choice. But now you feel hurt. Your thoughts on buying the new outfit had created happiness. And now your thoughts on receiving criticism have created hurt. Your thoughts are created by the soul based on your consciousness. When you are soul conscious, perfection in sanskars becomes your priority. You take care of your body as a trustee, keeping it healthy. You buy material objects for physical comfort rather than for happiness. You choose what to experience through the sense organs, thereby gaining mastery over them. You control the objects or gadgets you possess and do not get controlled by them. Barrier 2, relationship consciousness. We often think, speak, and behave through the labels of relationships. For instance, we say, here are 3 points. First, I am a teacher. How should my students behave with me? Second, I am your best friend. You should not hide anything from me. Third, is this how a husband should treat his wife? Someone having the consciousness of being a father creates certain expectations from a son. For instance, if his son is rude, he says, I am his father. How could he talk to me like that, especially in front of others? Let us analyze the scene. First, the father was connecting with his child through the image of how a son should behave with a father. Second, the father's expectations were a result of that image. So he wanted the son's behavior to align with the image of an ideal child, polite and respectful. Third, when the son pricked or damaged that image with rudeness or disrespect, the father could not accept it. Fourth, the father felt insulted since he did not receive respect from his son, which he had assumed to be a normal expectation in their relationship. All of us create a mental image of an ideal parent, child, spouse, friend, and colleague. These images are certainly important as they teach us about the right sanskars for us to create. They give us an idea of what to deliver as we play different roles throughout the day. The images we all hold are benchmarks used by us, by the society, or by elders in the family to teach everyone how to be. But in the field of relationships, it helps to remember that everyone cannot live up to that image. In our own experience, we would have seen that a few people may come nowhere close to that image. A few people match that image, while a few others do way better than that image, going above and beyond our expectations. Everyone is a soul on a long journey of multiple lifetimes, so they carry many sanskars. This understanding helps us to accept people and respect them, and yet guide and discipline them, thereby helping them create new sanskars. Whenever we connect to each other through the consciousness of the labels of relationships, we are bringing ego into play. Since both of us are attached to a false image of ourselves, it is the ego of one that connects to the ego of the other. Trying to satisfy the ego makes our relationships complicated. Differences of opinion trigger disrespect, arguments, or conflicts. That is why the term ego clashes has been coined. When we connect to each other through soul consciousness, then it is a soul to soul connection. Soul consciousness helps us understand the other soul's behavior and have no expectations. It inspires us to enter relationships only to give and not to want anything. It enables us to radiate unconditional love, acceptance, and harmony. You might have experienced soul to soul relationships with a few people in your own life. You bond well and accept each other easily. These are your soul connections, where love and care are exchanged effortlessly. You refer to such a person as a soul sister or soul brother. Just by shifting from ego to soul consciousness, we can turn every single relationship into a soul connection. Let us analyze the earlier scenario of the interaction between a father and son to understand what difference a soul to soul connection would make. Suppose the father is in soul consciousness and the son speaks rudely to him in front of many people. Visualize the scene and the father's response. First, the father does not seek love and respect from his son, or from anyone for that matter. He experiences love and respect as his own innate nature. Next, he is unaffected by the son's rude words. He remains calm and stable internally and externally. Next, he understands that his son is in emotional pain for him to be so rude, maybe due to a wrong sanskar being activated, due to bad mood or owing to some pressure, so he does not create judgmental or critical thoughts. Next, the father knows he has the power to heal his son with love. He either remains silent at that moment or assertively, not angrily, tells the son that his behavior was not right. Next, radiating compassion, love, and respect, he empowers his son to understand and change. Next, the father remains untouched by the opinions of the other people who witnessed the scene. Being soul conscious, he is not dependent on public approval to feel good. He understands they are entitled to different views according to their sanskars. Can you see what a vast difference soul consciousness makes to relationships? We live with the illusion that we experience love and respect only when we receive them from people. Love and respect are the inherent qualities of the soul. These emotions are to be experienced from the inside out and not from the outside in. We experience them only when we radiate them to other people. Once we stop wanting and start giving, we become the first ones to experience these feelings. Heading Barrier 3, Role or Position Consciousness. When we identify ourselves with a role or position, we believe happiness and respect come from what we achieve, and that power can be experienced when people are in our control. We try to get happiness by rising in ranks, by achieving more, and by outperforming others. In the process of achieving more and neglecting self care, we create stress, aggression, jealousy, insecurity, manipulation, and even corruption, and the I moves away from power and happiness. For instance, a CEO speaks out of ego when he says, I am your boss, so you should do exactly as I say. The ego of the employee gets triggered. He replies, Sir, I certainly respect your position, but I want to execute it my way. This is how their egos clash, and then begins a journey of giving each other a hard time. All because of their egos, their peace of mind, physical health, relationship, the employee's career, and eventually the project itself suffers. Nothing good ever comes out of a clash of egos and the need to satisfy one's ego. The soul experiences power when it is a master of its mind and when it can remain untouched by the energy of situations and people's behavior. Today, since our mind and sense organs are not always under our control, we do not experience the control within us. This is why we want situations and people to be in our control. Heading: Awakening to Soul Consciousness. Visualize this situation as vividly as you can. Suppose you are an employee heading to office in the morning. First, you drive to your office. How do you talk to the security guard? Second, you enter the building. How do you talk to the receptionist? Next, a team member greets you on the way to your desk. How do you talk to him? Next, the CEO passes by. Just as you settle down, how do you talk to her? It is possible that first, you ignore the guard, you do not even acknowledge his presence. Next, the receptionist greets you, but you do not reply, as you are already thinking of the day's workload. You just nod and walk past her. Next, your team member wants to have a word with you, but you cut him off and ask him to send you the project report. Next, your CEO passes your desk. You stand up, greet her, and speak softly to her. Just be yourself, we are often told. But could you see your behavior change 4 times in less than 15 minutes as you met the 4 people? Applying that wisdom here, which of the 4 behaviors reflect your natural self? The answer is none of them. Because if something is natural, it would not have changed. The most important question is, why did you change your behavior 4 times? We believe it is normal to conduct ourselves differently with the people around us, especially when interacting with 4 different roles. We justify that we are responding in a way in which we can relate to them. Notice that the 4 behaviors appear to be perfect for a role to role connection. Since our consciousness is I am the role, we see others also through that consciousness and behave accordingly with them. That is why we do not find the need to smile and greet the security guard. We feel it is not needed for that role. We may believe that we are respecting the CEO, but that may not be authentic. Perhaps we are respecting their position or their achievement. Maybe we want to impress them, or we possibly want something from them. Let us check our intentions. Are we respecting the person, or are we respecting their role? Will we respect them the same way if they lose that position? Are we respecting them only through outward behavior, or do we respect them in our thoughts and feelings also? Can we not speak with the same dignity and respect to everyone? We can. What stops us is our ego, our attachment to the wrong image of being superior, inferior, better than, or not as good as someone. When we are talking to a security guard or to our driver or peon, if we are conscious of their role, then we expect them to be respectful, but we do not feel the need to be equally respectful to them. If they make a mistake, we believe we have the right to shout at them. But if we make a mistake, we believe they must keep quiet. These are beliefs that are created based on role consciousness. We will be ourselves and interact with others through our true nature only when we are talking person to person, a soul connecting to another soul. Going back to the earlier example, visualize yourself being in soul consciousness. You head to the office and meet the same 4 people. You are likely to respond this way. First, as you enter the gate, you respectfully smile at the soul playing the role of the security guard. Next, you acknowledge and reciprocate the greeting of the soul playing the role of the receptionist. Next, you listen calmly to the soul playing the role of your colleague and respond in a friendly manner. Next, you stand up to give regard to the soul playing the role of your CEO, but your tone and behavior do not change. Your respect for her does not increase based on the role she is playing. When we are aware of being a soul playing a role, ego clashes, power games, short term financial gains, achievements at the cost of our health, and relationships will all appear insignificant. We will see others also as equal souls. Our nature will not change 4 times. You may ask, how is it possible to behave in the same manner with the CEO and the security guard? Our behavior is a combination of two aspects, respect and regard. Respect is internal, it is in our consciousness, our belief about the identity of the individual, our thoughts and feelings, and the vibrations we radiate. Regard is external, it is in our behavior. We will examine this more closely in the next section. Your behavior can change because you need to give regard according to people's roles. For instance, you do not need to come out of your car to greet the security guard. If he salutes you, you do not have to salute him in return. But your consciousness remains the same, one of equality. Respect is for the soul. Regard is for the soul. Regard can be different. Respect will be the same for all. In ego consciousness, when you feel superior, the other person feels inferior. When you feel inferior, the other person feels superior. This is because your consciousness also takes them into the consciousness of their role, or they may already be in the consciousness of their role. But when you are in soul consciousness, connecting to each one as an equal, you are in an egoless state. Your consciousness influences the other person and they also shift to being themselves. This is a soul to soul connect, having a vibration of equality, humility, and acceptance. Ego consciousness may have become the default today, but soul consciousness is our true essence. Soul consciousness is natural for all of us. Let us keep practicing it each day. We may tend to fall back into body consciousness time and again. But as soon as we notice, the act of noticing itself nudges us back to soul consciousness. The process can be a gradual one because we are shifting from 100% ego consciousness to 100% soul consciousness. Expecting instant results would be wishful thinking. It is comparable to watching a plant grow. We do not sit in front of it all day and stare at it. We simply water it every day. It takes a few days or weeks to spot a new branch or a new leaf. Likewise, we just need to nurture the self every day. After a few days, we will be able to notice changes in our thoughts and behavior. So, let us never think this transformation is difficult. Soul consciousness is not possible in practical life. When everyone else is not doing it, how can I do it? These thoughts create a barrier in our journey of transformation. The more we remind ourselves that we are souls, the easier it becomes to shift towards soul consciousness. Let us practice soul consciousness in every scene. First, while doing every task, create the thought, I, the soul, am doing this. Second, before meeting someone, create the thoughts, I am a pure soul meeting another pure soul. We will have a beautiful meeting today. Third, if you find it hard to accept someone's sanskars or behavior, create the thought, I am a powerful soul. I understand them. This soul has created this sanskar on the journey of life. Practicing soul consciousness is similar to the experience of watching a movie or a play. While watching, you are aware that the cast is comprised of actors playing their roles. You do not get entangled in the roles that they are portraying. You appreciate the actors playing different roles for their performances. The actor is the soul or the being, while the role reflects the doing. Heading: Can you respect everyone equally? The answer is yes. Respect is an internal feeling created for a soul, for who they are. Since we are all equally pure, equally beautiful, and equal beings, respect should not vary from person to person. Every individual is to be equally and uniformly respected. It has nothing to do with their age, role, status, or achievements. Respect implies acceptance, which means the energy flowing from us to the other person remains pure. Our thoughts and words about them are always right. We interact with them with equality and dignity. We like their qualities, their behavior, and their karmas. Even when we disagree with their views or sanskars, we do not question their ways. We empathize that the soul has created that sanskar due to certain situations on its journey of many lifetimes. We also understand that people can be and do things only as per their qualities, views, and capacities. But if we get disturbed because of people's sanskars, it means we are first disrespecting ourselves. We react impulsively and thus disrespect the other person too. When our self respect is high, we can accept others easily. Thereafter, respecting them becomes natural. On the other hand, regard can vary from one person to another. Regard is an external courtesy or protocol extended according to the roles, relationships, age, position, knowledge, status, and achievements of people. Therefore, it need not be uniform for everyone. Regard is a vital component in the way we relate to other people and is reflected in our behavior. For instance, when a student receives a medal for topping the class, the other students clap and applaud her. This is a regard given for her hard work and achievement. Another example of regard is where everyone at home takes blessings from the eldest member of the family before heading out each morning. This is a regard given for seniority in age and relationship. Other examples of showing regard are listening actively, waiting for our turn to speak, giving up our seat, or holding a door open for someone. In a school, students stand up to greet the teacher when she enters. They maintain silence when the teacher begins the lesson. This is regard given by students for the teacher's role. The same school has a peon, but students do not need to stand up to greet the peon or offer their chair to him. However, can the students talk to the peon equally, lovingly, and respectfully like they talk to their teachers? Yes, they can. We even see that happen. Having understood the difference between regard and respect, think about this. First, can you extend regard without giving respect? Yes, you can. At times, you speak politely and do exactly what the other person says. But while doing it, if you are critical or judgmental about them, it means you are not radiating respect in those moments. You are internally disrespectful but are extending regard, maybe due to their seniority in position, achievements, or bodily age. Second, can you respect someone? even if you do not meet their expectations? Yes, you can. Has anyone told you, if you respect me, do this for me? Or snapped at you saying, you couldn't even do that much. You do not respect me. Our feelings for people and what we do for them are separate entities. You may genuinely respect someone yet not be able to do everything that they expect from you. On the other hand, you may obey every word that someone says merely out of compulsion or helplessness, but internally you disrespect that person. So, it is important that we never equate respect for someone with meeting their expectations. We have the power to adjust, adapt, stretch our comfort zones, change our sanskars to meet someone's expectations. But it is important that we do it with love and respect and not out of compulsion or frustration or fear. Otherwise, we may not be happy but still be doing it, and thereafter we expect them to return the favor. Therefore, we need to keep talking to the self till we come to the answer, I am doing it because I choose to do it. I am doing it willingly for myself, not for them. Dismantling gender stereotypes. We explored various labels assigned to ego or body consciousness. One of them happens to be gender. Our gender, when perceived as an identity rather than as the physiology of our body, leaves a significant impact in the way we think, feel, behave, or experience our lives. Today, it is playing a huge role even in the way others perceive us. However, it helps to understand that gender applies only to the body and not to the soul. One person is clad in a sari and someone else wears a t-shirt and jeans. In a similar way, we are all souls, but the bodily costume we wear is different. Someone is in a male costume and another is in a female costume. On a journey of many births, each of us would have been in male and female costumes. The gender which keeps changing is for the body and not the soul. Qualities or personality traits are attributes of the soul and have nothing to do with the gender of the body. However, society has been conditioned to believe and live otherwise. Certain personality traits and qualities have been traditionally associated with the masculine gender and certain others with the feminine gender. This conditioning helps to lay down specific attributes, responsibilities, or roles for men and women in a society. But stereotyping certain traits as imperative, which must be performed or possessed only by men or only by women, just because of their gender, is questionable. It has led to wrong notions and harmful consequences in the way individuals are raised, perceived, or treated. It has even limited people's capacity to rise to their full potential and has affected their fundamental freedom, such as rights to health, education, career, relationships, and so on. Let us consider a few examples. First, traits perceived as feminine: powerful, resilient, compassionate, nurturing, graceful, gentle, mild, understanding, intuitive. Second, traits perceived as masculine: strong, physical endurance, aggressive, authoritative, adventurous, competitive, analytical. Professional roles like that of doctors, entrepreneurs, or lawyers require inculcating specific personality traits or sanskars to experience more success. Society seems to apply similar guidelines for the roles men and women play. Historically, men and women had clearly demarcated duties. A man's role based on gender was to earn money, support the family, and be the breadwinner for the household. A woman's role was that of a nurturer and a caregiver for the family, handling all the household chores. Accordingly, boys and girls were conditioned to imbibe those sanskars as they were used more frequently. Those sanskars became more activated or dominant in their personality. This led to a misconception that each gender excels only at specific roles. In daily life, we see that sanskars cannot be stereotyped based on gender. The extent of a particular trait within us depends on our sanskars, past experiences, and social conditioning. This is why we sometimes find men who are more caring and compassionate than women. Likewise, we come across women who are more daring or outspoken than their male counterparts. This goes to show that qualities or traits are not decided by biological gender. If you wear a blue outfit and your friend wears a white one, will you feel superior or inferior to him? You do not. You understand it is just a matter of wearing different clothes. The same applies to a bodily costume. A soul who has taken a male bodily costume is not superior to a soul who has taken a female costume. Superiority and inferiority are mere constructs created and sustained by the society based on certain roles. As per this construct, the provider was believed to be superior and the nurturer was dependent on the provider in the past. So, women were denied several rights and opportunities. Women today are just as they were in the past. How are they now able to shine in every role today? How are they able to take any challenge in their stride? What led to such staggering changes in their ways? Turns out that sanskars are the answer. Sanskars are not gender specific, they are simply soul specific. A woman has always had the sanskars needed to progress in the professional and public domains, just as her male counterparts have. It was only a matter of a woman using those sanskars or not. In the past centuries, a woman had limited or no avenues to bring those sanskars into action. So, the sanskars remained dormant. They were present but rendered inactive. Today, she has opportunities to bring those sanskars to the fore and strengthen them further. Women need to remember they are neither inferior nor superior to men. All souls are equal but different based on their sanskars. They need not compare or compete to prove themselves. They need not do anything that does not align with their sanskars and principles, just to prove they are on par with men in the various roles they play. Both men and women need to focus on their own sanskars and elevate their vibrations. The need of the hour is to strengthen who we are while excelling at what we do. Sanskars are about the soul, never about the gender. In the next chapter, we shall explore why a soul has a particular set of sanskars, why our sanskars differ, and how these sanskars are created. Heading: Sustaining Self Awareness. We set out on the journey of knowing I am a soul, and now we have set a goal of making soul consciousness our natural way of living. With awareness and a little attention, we can experience it and gradually remain in that state, even while playing all our roles and doing everything that needs to be done. When we start reminding ourselves every morning before beginning a task before every meeting, during every interaction, and before sleeping at night, that we are souls, slowly the duration of the soul conscious stage will increase. Transformation from body consciousness to soul consciousness may happen in small steps, but is nevertheless a huge achievement. Even a slight shift will have a multifold effect on how we experience life. Pause and feel how your egoless state would be. Egoless in relationships, egoless at work, egoless all the time, and the soul sparkling like a flawless diamond. Just thinking and visualizing it feels divine, doesn't it? Chapter 8 complete.